Daf Tes Zayin Amud Beis, 3 lines from the top. Continuing on with the Yud Ches Gzeres. Shimon ben Shetach Tiking Suvelish Vegozer Tuma al Kli Matchas. One of the Gzeres he made, Tuma on metalware, Kalim made out of metal. Frek the Gemara, Kli Matchas Daraisanina. Kli Matchas, that's Menatayra. Menatayra, if a metal Kalim comes into contact with Tuma, it becomes Tomei. It says clearly by the clay midyan that Zav, Kosef, these are metals that become Tomei, they have to have tefillah. So what was the gzera that he enacted so many years later? Where it says, it means for the Tumah, the old Tumah. Like we discussed before, that if a keli became Tomei, and if that keli broke, so minatar it's tar, and therefore whatever tumah was there before disappears, is gone. Now, if they fix that keli, it's refashioned, it becomes a kli again. So minatar, the old tumah that was there before, does not reappear. This gzera that we're referring to is he was misaken that for metalware, the tumah that was there before, after they fixed the kli, that old tumah comes back. That's a tumah d'Rabbanan. What were the circumstances? Why was he geyser? As follows. The Amar of Yehuda Amar Rav Ma'isa b'shel tziyana malka she'asa son mishta lebeno. She made a mishta for her son. So this was at the time of Shimon ben Shetach. Some say that was his sister. V'nitmu kol keleho. And at the Mishnah, all of the kelim became tomei. Vishav rosan. So now, if the kelim became tomei, if it became tomei with a tumas meis, which was the situation over here, so a kli that becomes tomei with a tumas meis, if the kli matchas becomes tomei with a tumas meis, then what it needs is a 7-day tara period with hazor, with the mechatas on shlishi v'shi on the 3rd and 7th days. There's a shortcut. A shortcut is to break the kli; it becomes immediately tohar, and then if you fix it, then it becomes a usable kli, which is tor. So there's a shortcut to circumvent the 7-day process, and the mechatas is to break it and to fix it. And that's what she did. Mishav Rasan v'nasan l'tzayir, and that she gave it to the tzayir, to the mitzarefet, to solder it, v'rizchan, and v'asa mehem kelim chanoshim, and he refashioned them into new kelim. So therefore, she took a shortcut, and the tumah that was there, she didn't have to wait the 7-day process period, and didn't have to have the hazah shlishi v'shvi, and she broke them, took them to the uman to fix them, and it became Torah right away. In order to prevent this from happening, become commonplace, the Chum say no. We're geyser that this is not an eitzah, it will not help, and the old tumah reappears. So there is no now benefit of doing this. You're not going to be able to circumvent the mechatas and the 7-day period, because the old tumah, midrabanan, they were geyser that the old tumah reappears. My time mishum gather mechatas nagubah, because they didn't want people to use this, and that for this to become common, and then people will forget about the mechatas, and they'll abandon the tahara, the purification that's required of the mechatas, and it will come into disuse. So they were geyser to miyushanan. Well, that's fine if you say that this was restricted to a case where it's tumas hames, because the 7-day period, the mechatas, is applicable only by tumas mes. So if you say that the purpose was to safeguard the mechatas, then we understand, and it's applicable that the Tumah or Yeshana only reappears when it's a case of Tumas Ames. However, but the one who says that this Tumah Yeshana, the reappearance of the old Tumah, is even by other sources of Tumah. Now, by other Tumah, there's no Mechatas anyway. So there would not seem to be the reason why they were going to Tumah Yeshana, because for other Tumahs, for sure, it's said that there's no Mechatas. And if the whole purpose of being geyser, this Tumah Yeshana, is to safeguard the mechatas, why would it be applicable by other tumas? Ma'ikla Meimer, what are you going to say? It's a different reason, a different gzera. There is a different reason for it, because to have the kli tome, when we say you break it, it doesn't mean a small breakage. It has to be something which makes it a break, which it renders it useless, which is, in many cases, it's the size of a rimain, of a pomegranate. Different shitas, different cases, but Rashi mentions the size of a rimain. There, it's not now usable anymore. In order to say that the kli is torah and the tumah goes off, it's breaking it so that it's no longer usable. Now we're afraid a person will break it. He won't break it to the size that's required, so therefore it's still tomei, and he'll use it as, consider it as something which is torah. So there were guys there that this is not an eitzah. It's not an eitzah because the old tumah comes back, because we're afraid that he won't break it into the degree that's necessary, and therefore it will still remain tomei. Rava says another reason. Another reason is because if you're toivel a kli which is tomei, now you toivel it and some of the tumah goes off, but it's not until nightfall, you can't use it for truma and kach. When you break the kli, then you can use it immediately. There's no requirement of herav shemesh. Now, if a person breaks the kli and becomes torah, now he can use it right away, and he fixes it and he can use it right away, people will think, well, similarly, if you're toivel the kli, you can also use it right away. This is matar and this is matar. If you break the kli and you fix it, you can use it right away, which minat Torah you can. But if people see that this is what's being done, they'll think similarly, if you're toivel it, if you're matar the kli through the process of tevilah, you can also use it right away for truma and kach, without herav shemesh, without waiting for nightfall, which is not the case. So therefore, there were guys there that know that the tumah, if you break it, the tumah yeshana, the old tumah comes back. My beinayu, the difference is if you now flatten it out and you break it to the extent that it's clear that this was a broken kli. It was a broken kli and not a kli that you were toivel. There, people see clearly that this tara did not come through tefillah, and therefore they will not assume that by tefillah similarly you can use it without herav shemesh. However, according to Abaye, when the concern is that he might not pierce it to the size that's required to make it tor, to render it tor, even in this case where he flattened out the keli, but he might now, in other cases, not flatten out the keli, he might break it, he might make a hole in it, and according to Abaye, we'd still be concerned that perhaps the hole is not large enough to render it tor. What is the other gzera? One of the other gzeras of the Yud Chesed, going through the list of them. What is the next one? This not. If a person puts a vessel under a pipe to collect the rainwater. Now, the thing is, we know is that for a kosher mikveh, it has to be mei geshamim. It cannot be mei she'uvim. It cannot be drawn water. You can't take water with a keli, draw it, collect it, and then put it in the mikveh. It's ma'im shuvim, it passes the mikveh. If it's mei geshamim, it's kosher. If you have rainwater and it's flowing through a pipe, it's flowing through a tzinor. So if you have a pipe, a down pipe on his house, now the case we're talking about over here is that the pipe itself is not considered a kli. Because of the tzinor, if the pipe would be considered a kli, we would make shuvim anyway. So as Rashi explains, we're talking where he fastened, for instance, a block of wood to the house, to the gutter or to the side of the house, and then he hollowed it out. So it never had a din of a kli. It was mechuber to the house. It's considered not a kli, and then he hollowed it out. So to be a kli, it has to be something that is movable, not mechuber. This was never a davar hametaltel. So it was never a kli. He hollowed it out after it was fastened to the house. So the water that flows through the tzinor, is mei geshamim. But now if you put a kli underneath it, so that the water that flows through the tziner not collects in this kli, that would be mei she'uvim, and it would passel the mikveh. However, there is a requirement for mei she'uvim to be considered mei she'uvim, and therefore to passel the mikveh, it has to be that it was nitten ladas. It has to be that a person collected it intentionally. It was done with intent to collect the water, or to draw the water. A person takes a bucket and he draws water from a lake or a river. He does it with intent, with das. Similarly, where it collects, it has to be nitten ladas. So the issue over here is under what circumstances is it considered ladas? Under what circumstances would be considered mei she'uvim? So if a person's he puts a vessel underneath the pipe to collect the rainwater, whether the big kelim, or whether the small, insignificant kelim, or even if they're made out of stone. What's the point that they're made out of stone? Even if it's a kli that's not mekabel tuma, it does not have the requirements of a kli lekabel tuma, but legabe megishamim, to make it mei she'uvim, it would still be considered mei she'uvim. It would still be collected. Meaning, we're going through kelim, which even if they're big kelim, which are choshev kelim, or even insignificant kelim, or even kelim which do not have the definition of a kli to say that they're mekabel tuma, but nevertheless they still would be considered kelim as far as considering the mei she'uvim. Or if they made out of mud, as opposed to kli cheres, which is baked in an oven, which is mekabel tuma. This is made out of mud. It's not mekabel tuma. Uklei galom, or made out of dung. Nevertheless, in all these cases, even though they're not mekabel tuma, poisel nesan mikveh. The passel the mikveh, the water that collects it into that is considered mei she'uvim. Beis says whether he put it there intentionally or whether he even forgot it over there. He just left the kli there. It's still considered, the water there that collects is considered mei she'uvim, which the Gemara will explain why is that so. Like we just mentioned, it has to be there ladas. Why is it considered she'uvim? So we'll see. Beis Hillel says if he forgot it there, he left it there, forgot it there, that's not ladas, so it's not considered she'uvim. Rameir says that this is where the case where they had the Yirches Dover, and the Beis Shammai overpowered and outvoted Beis Hillel, and they enacted this gzeira even by sheicheya. However, Beis Shammai is moed if it's sheicheya b'chotzer, not under the pipe. In the open courtyard, that they're moed in such a case that he is tar because there's not such an indication of a kavana. If he put it under the pipe, that shows that there's a kavana that he really wants the water. And the open courtyard in the open air, we don't see that indication. Now, the Gemara will discuss what are the circumstances that we're discussing over here. When is sheicheach? When does Beis Shammai say that sheicheach is considered das, is considered intent, and how we contrast the tzinar and the chatzar? So we'll see. Amar Rav Yosi adayin machlekes b'pei meres. Rav Yosi says no, this is not one of the yudches davar. This machlekes, there was no nimna v'gomrov, there was not resolved, and the machlekes still stands. So the Gemara will discuss shortly what does Rav Yosi say in place of this. What does he replace one of the Yudches Dover in place of this Mayim She'uvim? So now the Gemara is going to explain the circumstances of the Machlekes over here. Amr Misharshi Debei Rav Amro Hakol Moedim Kishin Nicham B'Shas Kishurovim Tmeim. Everyone is moeded that if he puts the kli under the pipe when it's cloudy and he's waiting, anticipating for the rain to come, so he clearly shows little das, he wants the water. Now, even if the rain doesn't come right away, so he goes about his business, and he left the kli there. So that's a kind of case, a type of case of sheicheach, but still, nevertheless, everyone is moed in that type of sheicheach that is considered ladas, the water is considered she'uvim, because he left it there, anticipating the rain to come. It was cloudy, it's still cloudy, but the rain delayed in coming, he went about his business, that's still considered ladas. Everyone's moed to that. B'shas pizurovim, if he left it over there where it was not cloudy, the rain was not about to come, divrikol taharim, because there's no real indication that he wants the rainwater because the rain is not about to come over here. Loi nechleku, where's the machlokes? Elashi nichem b'shas kishuravim. He put it there where it was cloudy. V'nispalzu, and now it's not just that the rain delayed in coming and he went about his business. It cleared up, so it's no longer cloudy. Rain is no longer imminent. And then it became cloudy again. Marsav Rabat Machshav, the Beis Hillel says the original Machshava that he put it there, Ledas, is bottled. Once it cleared up, so that nullifies the original intent. It's not considered anymore Ledas because he put it there and it was cloudy, it cleared up. And therefore, he already now is mevatel that original intent because the rain is no longer imminent. He's not anticipating rain to come now. Marsav Loy Batel Machshavtoi. And Beis Shammai says, no, it's loy batel machshavtoi, because since he left it over there, he put it there where it was cloudy, and he clearly showed his rotzon that he wants to collect the water. It's ladas, just because it cleared up, when subsequently it gets cloudy and the rain falls, we connect it to his original machshava, to his original ladas. But however, that's when it's under the pipe. In the courtyard, you don't have such an indication of rotzon to begin with. Under the pipe, he's anticipating that it's going to flow into the kli, and he wants it. Out in the courtyard, it doesn't show that strong of an indication. So over there, they're moida that under these circumstances, in the courtyard, under these circumstances, Beis Shammai would be moida that it's not considered ladas. Now, like we said, the Rav Yosi argues with this, and Rav Yosi says this is not one of the Yud Chesdov. But Rav Yosi, he says the machlokes is still standing, so this is not one of the Yud Chesdov. Batzil, you're missing one of the 18. Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak, he replaces this with the following zera. Benois kusim nides marisosan b'yam gazu. He says what was enacted, the zera that was enacted on that day, was to treat kusim as tmei nida. B'nais kusim nidas marisosan b'yam gazu. There were guys that b'nais kusim have a din of a nida from birth. What's the issue over here? Anita has a riyas dam. Is a woman that has riyas dam. She is tmei nida. Minat Torah, any type and any age of riyas dam would render an isha to be a nida. Even though it's very unusual to have it at a very young age and certainly from birth, but if in the unusual circumstance that does happen, she's tmei nida. The kusim did not darshan that way. They did not agree with that halacha. And therefore, the Chachamim said, since they do not agree with that halacha, they cannot be trusted on tumas nida. Now, even though, for the most part, they are machmir on nida, and they do keep the halachas of nida and tumas nida, but since in this halacha they don't, the Chachamim say they can't be trusted on any of the halachas nida. So therefore, they were geyser that the b'nais kusim from birth, the girls are all considered tmei nida, and we don't rely on them for tumas nida at all. So this is the one that Rav Yosi replaced for the Yud Chesdavar. He said this is the one in place of the Mayim Shuvim. This is the one that was considered part of the Yud Chesdavar.